Hey 49ers fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into Chat Sports, and today, let's take a look at all of the in-house unrestricted free agents the 49ers have for the upcoming 2020 offseason. 14 in total. Who should stay? Who should go? Let's go ahead and break them all down. So, we'll start with the fact again, 14 unrestricted free agents, a couple of restricted free agents as well. We'll talk about those in a later video. Got about $21.2 million in free cap space right now. It's projected out for the offseason. Now, that can change based on resigning people, keeping people, letting people go, and so you can have a little bit more or a little bit less, but overall, $21 million is not a ton. Like, you can't re-sign everybody, but it's not like the worst salary cap situation in the NFL, so the Niners can keep and make a lot of moves. Their number one free agent, in my opinion, has got to be the defensive lineman Arik Armstead, the former first-round pick. He balled out on the defensive line this year, obviously helped out having D Ford and Nick Bosa around him, but he played very, very well in terms of what he is looking for and the market price that he could have going into the 2020 offseason. This season alone, 10 sacks, 32 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 22 quarterback hits, and he's been a stud moving around on that 49er front four, as you see, guys, in our defensive line depth chart. When he's out there with Bosa, he's out there with D Ford, he's been an absolute menace, and I think a guy that 49ers really need to go ahead and bring back. Here's the problem with a guy like Arik Armstead. Can you actually afford to keep him if you make other moves here? Again, $21 million in free cap space, and also the defensive line market right now in free agency, we'll go and throw up that graphic right now, is not exactly that strong. Yeah, you have guys like Jadeveon Clowney and Jason Pierre-Paul. There are some decent edge rushers out there, but there's no real studs besides Jadeveon Clowney, so you can make the argument Arik Armstead is the number one, if not the number two defensive lineman, or defensive end, defensive pass rusher, I should say, in free agency. So if you want to keep him, your best bet is to franchise tag him, because other teams are going to be able to offer him more money over, more years, I should say. But the Niners want to go ahead and keep him. It'll be expensive. A one-year franchise tag at the top 5% of all defensive linemen would be a lot, but I think he's a guy that 49ers really need to try to go ahead and keep. It's just going to be very hard to do, again, because the money, other teams can go, hey, I'll give you $2 or $3 or $4 million more than what San Francisco can give you, and we'll give it to you over 3 to 4 years, whereas San Francisco could probably only do a franchise tag. I want to keep him. I think he's a huge part of the defensive front. I don't know if he exactly is going to ruin our D-line if he leaves, because you still have Bosa, you still have D Ford, but overall, he's the number one in-house free agent the 49ers have going into 2020. Quick ad's going to roll here on YouTube. Don't worry about it. Scroll down, answer the pinned comment here. Should the 49ers re-sign Arik Armstead? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, moving on to our free agent number 2. That has got to be the wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders. Remember, the 49ers traded for him at the deadline. He's expected to want $10 to $15 million in money per year going into this coming free agency. He wants to get paid like one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. But the deal is that Jalen Hurd, our wide receiver from last year, we drafted, back injury, didn't play, from Baylor, remember him? He'll be coming back and should be good to go for the 2020 season. So Sanders was good, 66 catches, 869 yards, about 5 touchdowns. He has some big games. He had some games where he didn't do a lot. There's a lot of mixed signals in terms of how great Emmanuel Sanders is and how important he is going to be for this offense. When you look at the actual depth chart, with guys like Kendrick Bourne being a restricted free agent, Jalen Hurd coming back from injury, and then Deebo Samuel balling out, do you need him is going to be the question. Will the 49ers make a run at Emmanuel Sanders? Will they make him an offer? Will they try and bring him back? 100%, they would not have traded away draft picks during the trade deadline if they were just going to let him walk. Do they need to bring him back? That is up for debate. I would argue that you do not need to re-sign Emmanuel Sanders. We talked about it. Arik Armstead going to cost a lot of money. I would much rather re-sign Arik Armstead than Emmanuel Sanders, but obviously we're going to have to go ahead and wait and see. There are some good free agents out there in free agency. Amari Cooper has not been re-signed by Dallas. Robbie Anderson's a free agent. Danny Amendola's a free agent. Nelson Aguilar's a free agent. There are a lot of decent. AJ Green's another one. There are some good ones out there, and so the market for Emmanuel Sanders might be a little bit less, but still, he's going to want some big money in terms of 10 to 13 to $15 million per year, and the Niners just might go, hey, Deebo is better later on in the year. We don't want to sign you for that much money. Let's go ahead and put our money elsewhere, a.k.a. Arik Armstead. Question for you guys right here. Should the 49ers re-sign Emmanuel Sanders? Type Y down below for yes. Type N down below for no. Those are really, in my opinion, the two big ones, right? So those are the two big ones that the 49ers really need to take a look at and figure out. The rest of these guys are going to be nice additions to keep or very easy guys that you let walk into free agency, you don't even worry about it. Starting with a guy like Jimmie Ward. former first-round draft pick. He had career highs in every single category this year, essentially, and was really, really good at the strong safety position for the 49ers. The question is, again, is he a guy you want to pay decent money to because he did sign a one-year deal this past offseason and is going to want a little bit more money? Is he a guy you want to give decent money to? Or, like a lot of the mock drafts have shown, do you wait at number 31 overall and sign a guy like, or draft a guy like Grant Delpit, the safety out of LSU? Could be better long-term, and also could be a lot cheaper long-term, or would be a lot cheaper long-term because he'd be on that rookie first-round draft pick forward with a fifth-year option deal. So a guy like Jimmie Ward would be a nice guy to keep. I would be all for keeping Jimmie Ward. I thought he played well for the most part in terms of every single game at the backside next to Tart and at secondary. But again, if the Niners think they can get a decent safety in the NFL draft, then why go ahead and re-sign him when you could put that money into a guy like either Emmanuel Sanders or Arik Armstead as well? Before we move on, you guys subscribe to the 49ers Report. If you have not, go ahead and click the red subscribe button down below. We're approaching 14,000 subs here as we jump into the offseason. The offseason is the best time to be a subscriber to this channel because we do a ton of draft stuff, of free agency stuff, of news, of rumors, everything regarding the 49ers. So go ahead and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. All right, moving on. I'm going to be honest here. In terms of ranking these players, I know there's going to be some people down below saying, oh my gosh, you rated this guy higher than that guy. From here on down, from 4 all the way down to 14, it can kind of be moved around where you rank these guys because, again, not a lot of the Niners stars are unrestricted free agents. How about a guy like Ronald Blair? He tore his ACL in the Seahawks game. He was playing very, very well, filling in at what was a rotating group of characters on the defensive line during injuries. 3 sacks, 14 tackles, 0 forced fumbles. Could be a nice guy to keep to continue to add depth to that 49er defensive line. A lot of these guys on this list are defensive linemen, so you kind of got to figure out where you want to go in terms of, you want this guy to be the backup, this guy to be the backup, and I think a guy like Ronald Blair, yes, coming off a torn ACL, could be very, very cheap. You bring him back, he knows the system, and could be a good depth player on the 49er defensive line. Before we keep going on, yes, the NFL season is over, but if you want to keep betting on the NBA, on baseball, on college basketball, everything regarding your betting needs are with our friends at BetDSI, chatsports.com/bet. Use the promo code 49ers. That's going to get you a 120% deposit bonus whenever you first sign up. I know, the NFL's done, but you can still bet on a ton of games. I know you guys like to bet on all the games out there. So again, chatsports.com/bet. Use the promo code 49ers. Again, get you a 120% deposit bonus, meaning you put $100 into the website, down, you're going to bet using $100, it actually turns into $220 with the promo code whenever you first sign up. It's all right there on the screen. Go ahead and check out our friends at BetDSI. Here's another defensive lineman who could be added for depth. Number 5 on the list, Sheldon Day. He started the last 5 games, including the Super Bowl, for the San Francisco 49ers, and could be another cheap keep on the defensive line. And the defensive line, like we said, could need depth. Yes, the stats are not fantastic. 10 tackles, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits. But again, in terms of helping out your other star pass rushers, if you keep Armstead, D Ford, obviously, Nick Bosa, you need some role players around here. And Sheldon Day, the last 5 games of the NFL season, including Week 16, Week 17, and the 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, he was a nice fill-in starter there for the San Francisco 49er defense. I will be just fine if they wanted to keep Day. I'd be just fine if they want to let go of Day and go ahead and sign Ronald Blair like we had talked about. But there are options right now happening on the Niner defensive front. Question for you here. I know, brutal loss to the Chiefs. We already talked about it here in the channel. It's horrible. We're trying to get through it right now. Excuse me. Will the 49ers be back to the Super Bowl next year? Type 1 down below for yes. Type 2 down below for no. Moving on, number 6, Jordan Matthews, the wide receiver who we were all very excited about in free agency and training camp, and then he really didn't do anything. He competed for the job in the preseason. He was cut early on in the season, re-signed by Philadelphia, cut by them, re-signed by the 49ers, and then was inactive for most of the playoff games, including the Super Bowl for San Francisco. Another guy that, again, I guess if you needed depth because you don't know what Marquise Goodwin's going to do, you don't know about Taylor, a lot of these other wide receivers, Kendrick Bourne might not come back. If you needed depth, you get Jordan Matthews for cheap, but I think he's shown he's not exactly going to be staying on NFL rosters for very long. Number 7, Jason Verrett. Listen, he was a big offseason addition here. We thought he could be a real stud at cornerback. He probably was going to be the starter for Mosley or Witherspoon until he went down with the injury, placed on IR, played in only 1 game this year, was not a factor at all. And like we said, signed that 1-year deal this last offseason, so it's hard to believe they'd bring back a guy like Jason Verrett, who was injury prone before that, and they were trying to just hopefully bring in a guy cheap and, turn mud into a diamond, turn dirt into a diamond here, because again, he's not going to start many other places. Was a decent offseason acquisition, signed the 1-year deal, and now it's like, all right, well, I think he's going to be let go and be hopefully signed by another team for his own career, but I don't see a long career happening right now with our 49ers. And speaking of the starting quarterback position next year, who should start? We've had this conversation throughout the entire year. Should be Mosley on the outside or Witherspoon. Type M down below for Mosley. Type W down below for Witherspoon. All right, other role player guys here you could either let go and not worry about or re-sign for depth. Number 8, how about Ben Garland? Garland could have been higher up on this list because he did play a ton starting in December whenever Weston Richburg went down with his torn up knee. And the question now is, do you keep him for depth? Or is Garland like, hey, I played well enough, I want to go start somewhere in the National Football League? Remember, was on the Atlanta Falcons, moved over, followed Kyle Shanahan, was the backup offensive lineman right now for our 49ers. I'd be interested to see if they want to keep him for depth on that defensive line or that offensive line front, because again, Staley was in and out during the Super Bowl. Do you keep Staley? Do you let Staley go? Do you trade him? Do you bring in Justin School? Does Staley retire? Who knows what happens on that offensive line, but Garland played very, very well all dating back to December and could be a guy you want to keep in terms of depth for San Francisco on that defensive front. Here are some guys now that I think are most likely going to be gone, starting with number 9, Garrett Selleck, the tight end who barely played this year, had all sorts of back injuries, did not really see the football field, and then watched his backup tight end spot get completely taken away by Ross Dwelley, who played a lot, including getting some snaps in the Super Bowl as a blocking tight end. He did catch some passes as well, 15 for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, but again, showed his versatility as a backup tight end. And so you look at a guy like Garrett Selleck, who at once was the number 1 tight end in this offense, is aging out of the position with the injuries. I would be shocked if he goes somewhere else. He might just retire, but I do not see the 49ers re-signing a guy like Garrett Selleck. Sean Coleman, the tackle, again, did not play in 2019. You put him there at number 10. Could have moved him back a little bit, but he is a nice little, I guess you say swing tackle, a cheap backup tackle if they wanted to bring him back. He started all 17 games for the Browns in 2018, but really did not see the football field due to injury in terms of 2019. So it could be a cheap backup tackle if they want to keep him. I could see them going someplace else, maybe just drafting someone later on in the 6th or 7th round, the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. That way you can have some cheap but young potential there at the backup offensive line spot. Demontre Moore, he was a preseason star. He was going to really be the Ronald Blair replacement when Ronald Blair went down, and then he immediately broke his arm in his second game against the Green Bay Packers, and that was it. So he had promising stuff. Could you re-sign him for cheap? Sure, he's another one of these defensive line rotational guys where you go, yeah, I mean, maybe they want to re-sign him, but at the same time, none of us would shed a tear if Demontre Moore is no longer with the 49ers come this offseason. Levine Toilolo. There's no way that Levine Toilolo comes back in 2020. 2 catches in 2019. He's been the 3rd tight end, and really he's down to that practice squad tight end for the majority of this year. The 49ers, like we said, they really like Ross Dwelley, and he's going to be the backup tight end right now behind George Kittle for the foreseeable future. Levine Toilolo, it's just not going to happen. The other 2 are Dante Jackson, who drafted by the Niners in 2014. He started 16 games in 2017 and did not play this year. Again, I don't see him coming back either unless you wanted literal cheap practice squad backup player depth. It just doesn't see it happening. A couple of these guys, again, they're not going to be on here. Dante Johnson, is one of those. And then Anthony Zettel, the defensive end who was cut by Cincy midway through the year, signed for depth, and could be another D-line depth chart in terms of keeping him there to get some rotational options in there, maybe practice squad, I don't know, but Zettel is not exactly going to be someone the 49ers need to be running to make a contract extension with, because he's one of those bottom free agents in terms of our 49ers. There you go. There is all 14 unrestricted free agents. Again, we'll do a list on our restricted free agents as well. Breed is on that list. Kendrick Bourne is on that list. There are some other good players, but these are your guys. Armstead, Sanders, Ward, and Ronald Blair, to me, are your top 4, and you could throw in Sheldon Day at number 5. What are they going to do with Armstead? What are they going to do with Sanders? That's going to be the real question here going into the 2020 offseason. Before we go, which free agents do you guys think is the number 1 free agent the Niners should re-sign in terms of their own free agents? From this list, who should they re-sign? Is it Armstead? Is it Sanders? Is it someone else? Let me know in the comment section down below. For the 49ers Report, again, all the time we have for today, plenty more of this kind of stuff coming up in the days and weeks ahead. Be sure to subscribe. For Chat Sports, I'm Thomas Mott, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day.